Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of the Peterpodcast. I'm your host, reporter Taylor Clydesdale. Here with me we have Lois Tuffin, editor-in-chief, and Roy. Why don't you introduce yourself today?
Well, I'm Roy Brady. I'm from the Council of Canadians, a non-profit, non-partisan group, Peterborough and MyKawartha's chapter. Been with that for, 17 years actually. And we are concerned about things like democracy and, energy, water, public health care, public resources actually.
And public resources is what brings us here today, because on Friday the news broke that the sale of PDI, Peterborough's Hydra distribution company, would no longer be happening. Hydra won, ended the deal. So what are your thoughts on, what were your thoughts when you heard the news on Friday?
Well, to a degree I was surprised because the city wanted the deal. They had passed it. Whether it was 6-5 or not, they had passed it, okay, and they wanted it. I know the city staff were working hard on it. At the same time, it was 15 months. Something had to be going wrong. And there was always a distrust of Hydra One, actually, as to what they were up to. So we still don't have all the details, but I think there's some questions that still have to be answered.
Yeah, Hydra One hasn't said what the reason for ending the deal was. The city hasn't said what they think the reason for ending the deal was. Do you? I don't want to get into too much speculation, but what do you think the reasons for the deal ending might have been?
I was wondering if Hydra One had been biting off an awful lot more than it could handle, and it's now a privatized company with a board of directors seeking profit. Maybe this wasn't quite the investment the directors wanted, and we heard that they had invested south of the border, where the prospects are obviously higher than they might be, say, in a place like Peterborough. And I just had the feeling that this wasn't necessarily something that Hydra One was going to do according to the terms they gave. And let's face it, there was money.
They bought a lot of utilities. They bought your Norfolk and up north. I mean, so there's big. They put a lot of money, and I was wondering how much resources and appetite they had to.
That's right.
It was a lot of money.
That's right. And they still didn't have the permission from the OEB. They still didn't have that, and there's a problem in Aurelia. So there were problems. And this, of course, speculation. Eh? You can always say, politically, with the election coming up, this is a Liberal seat, and they don't want to lose it, of course. And there may have been some political push and so on. I can't prove this. That this not be an issue here. Yeah.
Do you think it will be a factor in the municipal election in October?
Oh, absolutely. It can't be avoided.
So tell me why, even though if the deal doesn't go ahead, why do you think it will be an issue?
Well, people still remember the vote. And now that it's not going to happen, that doesn't mean that the 6 people who voted for it are going to be absolved of anything. Okay, so I think a lot of that acrimony, and there was quite a bit of acrimony, we know that, okay, will return. Because I think there's a certain dissatisfaction, I think, with the current council. And it's the group of 6 and the group of 5, and there's dissatisfaction in both groups. And I think people are going to go into this election with a little bit more alertness and probably a little bit more unhappiness. I think councillors are really going to get challenged, and the PDI will be one of them.
Yeah, no, PDI was one of the main issues one of the main criticisms of this council has been from the public, that it doesn't listen to its constituents, and PDI was kind of cited as the largest example of that being the case. When we did our poll at the end of 2017 about how many people were for the sale and against the sale, 84% of respondents said that they were against the sale. So for the most part, people in the community were against selling Peterborough's distribution company. So it's something that is going to, it's going to hang over the election, especially if what's going to happen next becomes an election issue. Because I was talking to John Stevenson over at PDI, the president over there, and he was saying that similar alternatives will be considered. So it's still possible that, Hydra One might not be the buyer, but we could still be up for sale.
Well, what happened was a failure of democracy, let's face it. The people should have a say, and this was a strong say. The people's wishes, and they were strong wishes, they weren't just poll results. People were expressing themselves all the time, and said that they did not want this particular sale. I think it's important to realize that this was the people's being upset and being against this sale wasn't overnight. This went on for 11 months, and they still felt the same way approaching December 15th, 2016, as they did back 9 months ago. So people were convinced this was not the deal, and I think it's the local bit that's important. We want to hang on to what we have.
And why is that important? Why do you think that is so vital to people?
Well, it's us. Peterborough's I consider a pretty distinct place. I think people are very proud to be here. Okay, well, if you're going to be here, we have to make our own decisions and not be wrapped up in something else. The fact that Hydro 1 had been privatized was extremely unpopular across Ontario, not just here.
Yep.
Okay, so to actually have decisions made on the corner of College and University Avenue is just what I don't think people appreciated that at all. And it happened under the rather very unpopular provincial government. So you add all those things together, and we've got a real election issue still.
Yeah, now there was cost associated for it. There was a reason, according to the city, why the sale was happening, and it was because PDI was not equipped to handle infrastructure changes, and if it didn't go into the sale with Hydra 1, then our Hydra rates would increase. What's your response to that?
Well, they said that all the time, and I've spoken to Mr. Stevenson, and I listened to just about everything the councillor said. They said that all the time, and they also mentioned about how the revenues will drop if we keep going the way we are. But there was never any evidence about this. And I found that really surprising, even at that civil engagement group or period of time in the last the November before the vote. Still, they weren't explaining why they thought this was going to be the case. Another factor, and this was expressed by Leslie Parnell and also by Mr. Stevenson in a conversation with me, was that, in fact, John said to me, look who's driving the bus. Obviously that meant the provincial government was putting pressure on them. And I didn't buy that. I didn't see that kind of pressure was happening. And yet that was given as a reason that we had to do it because the province wanted it and maybe we would be punished. I just couldn't buy that. But it was important. It was really important. Well, it created Leslie's vote. She said it about 4 times.
So you're not convinced that
No.
that there was an economic reason locally for the sale?
Well, there could be. I don't know. I don't know. We just weren't told. Henry Clark at the last session before he voted said that he had information we didn't. He never told us what it was. So the information wasn't there. It just was not there.
Okay, and there's a whole ethical debate too about keeping energy public. I know that drove a lot of the people that were interested. Why is it so important to keep the public energy public, I guess is.
Well, we can't live without it.
That's true.
Energy is extremely important. We had our own utility non-profit up until, I guess it was, 1999, and then 2003 was the final legislation. And it's been good. That's one particular city operation that people like.
Yeah,
And they certainly criticize a lot of city operations, So I think people were very proud of it. And they knew the record of Hydro 1 next door in the surrounding rural areas, which was not good. Their communications was terrible, and they were rough on people who were behind on their bills. They gave out bills that are incorrect, and yet they were going to take our distribution system after their particular failure.
Well, they weren't going to take our billing.
Eh?
They weren't going to take our billing, I don't think.
Well, they would be responsible for that, would they not? Distribution
The distribution charge would be on the bills, but
yeah, but they are responsible for it. And they had such a poor record in the municipal areas nearby.
Okay.
So we had people in the township and counties, including one person I talked with last night, who told us about Hydro 1's performance. That was always there. Being bought by some group that wasn't going to do as good a job.
Now, part of the deal was for I believe it was a 5-year freeze on Hydra rates. And right now the situation is that freeze isn't there. So Hydra rates could increase as soon as next year, and that's something that has been discussed. So what are your thoughts on the idea that, a lot of people were against the sale, which had that freeze involved with it, that would have frozen Hydra rates for those 5 years. Do you think that Hydra rates increasing now will equal out to what they would have been in 5 years?
That's hard to say. I know the promise to keep the rates where they are now for 5 years was appealing. There's no doubt that was appealing. It had to be agreed to by the OEB, which never happened. And in fact, just from casual reading, a number of utilities were having difficulties getting their rate decisions okayed. So there's a possibility that Hydro One may have promised something they couldn't deliver. Some people, including Diane Therrien, argued that down the road, another 5 years, the rates would skyrocket. Now, we couldn't prove that, but that was a possibility. It's a for-profit company. You got to make money.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering is, let's say theoretically it would skyrocket, and there's not much evidence to support that that would have been the case. There's a lot of speculation.
That's right.
But would the rate increases that we'd be dealing with as of next year, would they have been as bad as this alleged skyrocket that we might have been dealing with?
Well, we don't know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't know. John Stevens is on record now as saying that it looks like we'll be applying for a rate increase next year. Well, looks like. Well, maybe not. We'll see. We'll see.
So what happens now? I mean, Hydro One was really interested in this, and now they're not. Do you think there's a possibility that they will come back and will do this whole process again, or they'll just tell us they're...
Is this part of some really aggressive negotiations?
Possibly. Possibly. I know our CEO said 5 weeks ago that the deal would have been signed by now.
Yes.
And he made that statement, which would suggest that, you don't say something like that unless it's going to happen. Hydro One returning, not with councillors who voted for the sale, angry at Hydro One. I can't imagine Hydro One coming here. Another problem it might have been is the building they were supposed to have. Was there a problem there? We heard nothing more on that.
Yeah, because they were supposed to have a spot where they were going to employ, what, 150 people?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, they were planning on bringing some jobs in the community, so.
Yeah. That's not usually what private companies do when they grab something or merge or whatever and so on. It's usually a consolidation. So we didn't know what that was going to be. I know Keith Riel was certainly gung-ho on that, being against that because of his union background, but we just did not know what the job situation was. And the answers at Market Hall weren't very good on that particular item, jobs. They weren't solid.
At a public information session?
Yes,
at Market Hall?
Yeah. There are actually two of them. One was in the March of that particular year, and then we were there again near the end of the year. And jobs did come up.
So, you had mentioned that it's a municipal election this year, and this all of a sudden became a municipal election issue. So what platforms are you kind of hoping to see from councillors that on this issue?
On this issue or overall?
Just on the PDI stuff.
Oh, okay. I think they're going to be darn quiet about it. So it's going to be up to the people at the old candidates meetings and the media who are going to ask the questions. So if we still have the two camps, the 6 people who voted for it are going to have to defend their vote, and maybe they will have some more things to say. When you're running for an election, you often speak differently than when you're not running for an election. It was interesting, none of them said they were going to do this sale or anything like it.
It wasn't on the radar.
Yeah, when they were campaigning before.
I don't think they knew.
Yeah. Well, probably not, no. And the 5 people who consistently voted against it are going to use it. I mean, let's face it.
Well, I think back to the last election where people said, well, the people who voted to go ahead with the environmental assessment on the parkway, that's it. Those people will never be back. And yet they were. So I'm never sure if the voters' memory is that long or not. Do you think this issue's different?
It's that's definitely a problem, or something that, say, the federal Trudeau government hopes is the case. The people forget these things.
A lot of other governments.
Yeah. I think locally, memories are a little bit better because the people who are running for an election live down the street. I mean, you can engage them anytime. I mean, there are councillors who I can engage anytime.
Yes.
I mean, it's a very approachable group, all of them, whether I agree with them or not. It's an extremely approachable group. And some of them reply to your emails and phone calls, others don't, but you can still meet them. When I go to council meetings, I can talk with them.
Now, the decision to make the sale in the first place took place in 2017, and you're a fairly involved citizen. I see you all the time at City Hall. I see you often making delegations to council, but most people aren't as engaged as you. Do you think for the average voter that they're going to be able to, look back at 2016 and remember the PDI sale and say, this is something that's going to sway my election vote?
Could be. They certainly will remember it for whatever important reasons to them. I think they will remember this one. And again, it's close to home. It was something to do with them. Okay?
Okay.
That's right. It really mattered to them. Foreign affairs doesn't affect us so much. At least we don't think it does.
That bill that comes in the month. Every
Yeah.
month
Yeah.
in
That's
the mail.
right.
Okay.
And it's, what is it, 7 months? Yeah, 7 months, or call it 6.5 months. Well, for the campaign, it's basically about 5 months away. So the fact that the sale ended now is significant. If it had ended a year ago and said, oh, it's not going to happen, maybe people would have forgotten.
Yeah, certainly there's
Yeah.
things that happen in an election year are definitely far more important for the people who
Yeah.
are voting. So
Right. And don't forget, my comment I think is correct, that this council has not been very popular. Maybe that's unfair to some degree, but still,
They were
it's been
popular.
chaotic at times.
The previous council wasn't popular, and
That's true.
a lot of them came back.
They did.
I was surprised and fascinated.
Didn't have the big issue though,
yeah.
the last
Parkway
election.
wasn't a big issue? Two
Well,
nights
it was
of
still
Parkway
going.
hearings? Oh
Yeah,
my word. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm still traumatized by the meetings.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I remember that one, yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
also another issue is that a councillor that across the city may not be popular, in their ward might be popular. So a lot of people were very critical of Dave Hakey and Andrew Beamer, but within their wards, they've proven to be relatively popular.
Yeah,
So
Parkway.
yeah, so who knows how much that'll play a role again. So,
Yeah, well, that's quite possible.
so I'll leave this last question to you before we wrap
Okay.
up. But what would you like to see happen next?
Like next before the election, like?
Yeah.
I'd like some explanations to what happened, because there's a process here that we were denied knowing. And to me, democracy is more than a vote. Democracy is you perform it. Okay, I mean, I do that. I take part in the democratic process and so on. It doesn't please everybody when I do it, but it pleases a lot of people. And I'm told that, hey, people have to be involved with democracy. So I'm hoping that part of democracy is getting the answers. If the answers satisfy us, fine. But we want to know what happened. And we want to know what you're going to do next. There's even speculation out there that they tried to sell the distribution company. Would the utility perhaps be up for sale, maybe? Water? Which would be, oh, that would just create a war. There would definitely be a war if it's water and water.
Yeah, I think right
Public
now,
trust.
all anyone's looking for right now is transparency, and so I think
Exactly, yeah.
there's going to be a lot of
That's
questions.
the word.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions moving
Yeah.
over the next couple days,
Yeah.
weeks, months, leading right up into the election.
Yeah.
So we'll see what kind of answers we
Well, I
get.
agree. City Hall hasn't been particularly transparent.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Roy. You've
Well,
been a
thank you.
fantastic guest, and
Mhm.
we look forward to talking more about this issue in the future.
All right.
So until next time.
Yeah.